Oh, they can miss out. It's a timing thing, isn't it? But that's nice to show social awareness and concern to them, for them.
No, I just want them all in the room because I learn more.
Good on you.
It's like, excuse me, your brain, your brain, your brain.
Yeah. So sense your contact, how your back, how you are relating to the floor through your back. How much of you do you feel giving your weight to the ground? You know, if we had to guess, like, you know, the rocket metaphor, 98% off target, of the whole back surface of you, what percentage, you know, top of the head, is it 50% that you feel lying on the floor? Is it 10%? You know, when we give scans, you know, sometimes it's really useful to change the scan around, because for someone, all of a sudden they go, oh, yes, there's only a little of me touching the floor. Or, oh, wow, yeah, there's 85%. And somehow the words, the image has different meaning. So now bring your attention to your right leg and the contact that your right leg makes with the floor. Your left leg, I'm not going to go too slow on the scan or you'll all doze off. So your left leg from your heel to your hip joint, into your pelvis. How much of your left leg is giving its weight to the ground? And compare that to your right leg. Your left arm and your right arm. And your head. Does your head feel heavier than your pelvis or lighter than your pelvis? And where do you sense the contact area on the back of your head? Please bend your knees, stand your feet. Cross your right leg over your left leg. And begin to sink your legs to the right and come back. And explore sinking your legs to the right, but find ways that you could make it more difficult, where it wouldn't feel as easy, where it wouldn't feel as comfortable. Not to hurt yourself, but just so you can clearly identify, what do you do? What can you do? What happens when you press the back of your head on the floor? Or when you only have your left heel on the floor and your foot's far away from your buttocks? But give yourself time to do each variation, or otherwise it's difficult to identify what the difference is that doing the particular holding or action that you're doing to make it more difficult, what are the conditions or the organization that it's creating. So what kind of things make it difficult for you? Out of what you've done so far, does something stand out as, oh, that was really easy for me to identify, that changed the way in which I could lower my knees to the floor? in the direction of the floor. You call anything out? Position of the foot? What made it more difficult?
Too far away from the pelvis.
Too far away from the pelvis. Too far to the right. Holding your breath. So if these are things you haven't tried, try them on. Pressing the foot into the floor. Beg your pardon? Bringing the foot too close, right close to the bottom. Yeah. Like so it's touching the buttocks.
Extending one side and holding your breath.
Making
one side deliberately longer.
Okay, making one side longer of your torso and holding your breath. So holding that position. Mm-hmm. Keeping the chin down to the throat. Yep. Lifting the knees closer to the chin. Yep. Well, then it's a whole different pattern, huh? That's okay. That make it easier or harder, Christine? Harder. Others? Holding through your hips. Would you say?
Yes.
Okay, I'm just wondering what you do when you hold through your hips. Is it tighten your belly or is it press your buttocks on the ground? Little bit of both. Yeah. But flattening your lower back, pressing your lower back backwards and tightening your belly is what I can see that you're doing there, Nicole. Bringing the right arm right close to your side. Mm-hmm.
Bringing the right shoulder so your spine curves around further to the right, so your right shoulder's coming down towards you.
When you're going to the right? So that'd be shortening your right side through your shoulder. Yeah? So I'm not quite clear about that action, Simon. Is it
The opposite to
lengthening your side?
curve around to the opposite?
Yes. It's shortening your right side.
Correct.
Yes. Making it concave rather than convex.
Yeah.
Yep. So, and I'd say if we stayed here all afternoon, you would come up with finer and finer distinctions of how to make it more difficult and possibly wouldn't run out. So if you're not good, you'll stay after class and you'll do an hour of that. And you'll be really amazed by finding now make it easy for yourself and just see if it's different. So often we're so go for, can I get it better, that we don't recognize the things that we're doing that are actually interfering with how we do it. So for those of you who are going back to it, does that feel any easier than when you first did it? Maybe. Maybe not. It's okay. Okay. As long as you breathe. If you don't breathe, then you're still doing something to make it more difficult. Okay, rest a moment. Yes, so we often are so absorbed by trying harder, by wanting to get it, make it better, do more, without recognizing that you have to make mistakes. Mistakes, the way our nervous system identify whether what we're doing is in the direction of our intention or not. They give us the sensory motor feedback. The more conscious we are in that moment where we feel, if we're not conscious, we'll either try right over it or not notice it or think, darn, do it again. But if we notice that moment, that's where the really interesting information is. That's where, if we can sense, see what we're doing, we can identify whether what we're doing is making the action harder or easier in terms of feeling sense, comfort sense, or if we're looking at a skeletal image, whether that shape, that relationship of ourselves, that direction of the twist or that shortening of the side, is that congruent with the direction we're trying to go in? Or is it actually unnecessary work? Please bend your knees again, stand your feet, cross your right leg over your left leg, bring your arms towards the ceiling in a triangle. So make that indeformable triangle. And do you remember the original instruction was to, almost the first, take your hands and your knees. This time we're going to the right at the same rate. And only go so far as you don't fall. Only go so far that it's still reversible. And reversible means that you can stop at any moment and continue or change or judge what you're doing in that present moment. That you can adapt your action according to your choice, moment to moment. So your hands need to go at the same rate as your knees. And now, can you do something to make this impossible? So check in. They're not moving at the same rate. So when your hands move ahead of your knees or your knees move ahead of your hands, it means you've lost something through the middle of yourself. Or forgotten momentarily. It's gone foggy. And we're really developing this relationship between the pelvis and the head, connected through the spine. So you use your breathing, your elbows are straight. Your hands are at right angles to your body. That's it. As you tilt to the right, left shoulder lifts. Now you can continue tilting them to the right, but allow your hands to move upwards a little bit as you roll rightward. And maybe you'll feel your knees move downward a little bit. And then as you come back onto your back, they're still moving through space at the same rate, but they're just heading a little bit off in opposite directions. And then as you come back onto your back, they're moving back towards one another till you arrive on your back in the same configuration that you began. So as you roll rightward, your hands move upwards in the direction of above your head, while your knees are tilting rightward, and you may even feel that your knees, as your pelvis rolls, your lower back begins to arch a little bit more, your knees move downwards a little bit, in a response to the movement of your pelvis and through the length of your spine. So you've got other information about sliding the back of the head backwards, turning your eyes, taking your nose with your hands. And as Danielle was saying yesterday, she could see the whole action projected from the very first movement, the trajectory. But sometimes our head gets ahead of us or behind. So it's not about shortening your neck or pulling your head back too soon, but finding the timing. When's the moment in this pathway of tilting your legs and the triangle of your arms to the right that it adds something that allows you to travel a little further to the right reversibly. And then as you come back, your head slides on the floor, your hands and your knees come towards one another, your back rolls backwards. Do you have any sense of folding through your middle as you come back? So your hands move upwards in the direction of above your head as you roll to your side, while your knees are moving downwards, your pelvis is tilting forwards, and there's this long lengthened arch as you come onto your right side with your head sliding backwards, not with a shortening of the neck, but as a consequence of the direction of movement of your head, the participation and distribution of movement through the whole of the length of your spine. Okay, come back onto your back and rest. So this is one of those lessons, and there are many lessons like this, where the lesson can feel really impossible to begin with. And then it becomes a little easier. The range expands a little, or the quality of movement improves a little, or your breathing is easier. Or it gets more familiar. Because we gradually do variations and explorations that help evoke the organization within you that makes it more feasible, more pleasant, and more comfortable to use yourself with this different organization than maybe you've done before. Please bend your knees, stand your feet, cross your left leg over your right leg, bring your arms towards the ceiling, hand palms together, and begin to tilt the triangle of your arms and your legs to the left, and explore how you can bring reversibility, the quality of reversibility to your movement. So how do you do that? Do you move in approximations? Go a little and come back? Go a little and come back, checking that you have the control, that you can make the decision, and your body follows you? Mm-mm. Feel that? So as much as you can, keep your elbows straight. The base of your triangle shifts. So as you're going to the left, the right shoulder lifts. And then the right shoulder comes back to the floor on your return. Put a little wheel lock on that elbow. So how do you organize yourself on this side? Is it feeling more pleasurable? How easily can you come back? What do you feel happening through the center of yourself? So when you come back, you're looking for your knees and your hands to move through space at the same rate. Really pay attention to shape through your spine as you move leftward, and the shape through your spine as you come back. Let your head turn to the left. Your nose turns to the left. So your nose doesn't stay pointing up towards the ceiling. The left is, you're going, your head is rolling. You feel the contact of the floor on the left side of your head. That's left, the left ear, downwards. Okay, rest a moment. Please bend your knees, stand your feet. Cross your right leg over your left leg. Bring your hands towards the ceiling in a triangle. And begin to go a little right, come back to the middle, and left. So now you're going rightward and leftward, gradually making the movement a little larger, but really looking for this quality of reversibility. And observing what does looking for that quality offer you an opportunity to discover. Are there different things that you notice? When you have that quality of reversibility, you can make a choice. It's not your habits acting out in you so that you're not enacting what makes it difficult or what makes it difficult to choose to do the movement in another way. You're keeping the choice. You're keeping the ability to adapt and alter the movement while you're engaged in it, which is what people who are really skilled at something do, musicians or artists. They're feeling, sensing, listening, judging, and continually adapting. So instead of attending to your feet, attend to the movement of your pelvis. The movement of pelvis, the movement of your hands, and the shape of your back. There you go. Good. Okay. So keep that still. Nope. Can you? Oh, wow. You haven't anchored it yet. It's not anchored. Don't move your head. There's a lot of movement that's possible here. So you really want to constrain that neck, okay? And let the movement happen through your spine elsewhere. No, not your head. Yeah, something like this. Yeah, is that what it is? Sorry. Wrap. And then soften. And you just do what they allow. Yeah? So you'll notice as you go enlarge the movement right and left, there'll come a moment where your right foot will touch the floor to the left of you. But don't pay attention to your feet. Just keep noticing the movement of your pelvis so that it won't matter whether your legs are crossed right over left or left over right, that you can do this action one side and come back through the middle and the other side. But so it's not about it's a different action. Yeah, is it the slippery rug? So just try it next time you come back to the middle. Change the crossing of your legs. And continue going leftward and rightward, and noticing that moment where your foot begins to approximate to the floor, whether that stops your motion. And does it need to? If you keep thinking of your pelvis, the relationship between your spine and your head, as you're rolling to either side, your knees and your hands are moving away from one another, and you're lengthening lengthening and arching a little bit through your back, as well as twisting and rolling. It's lots of things happening at once. And then when you come back, you feel a moment where it helps to fold, kind of direct your lower back, your lower ribs towards the floor, which will help bring your hands and knees closer to one another, which gives you something to roll over. Think of your pelvis. Think of your pelvis. And then let it go. Rest on your back. Please stay on your back, legs long if it's comfortable for you, and bring your hands together in that, with your arms are in the triangle. Now begin to roll yourself a little left and a little right in order to tilt your triangle towards the floor, keeping the elbows straight. So you've got the direction, but you don't have to get there. It's in those very first mobilizations of yourself that it's possible to discover whether you're doing something that's contrary to your intention or supportive, congruent, harmonious with your intention. Okay, pause a moment. Does everyone feel they've got one side's easier? Put your hand up if you feel one side's easier. Just waiting for hands or triangles to go up. Okay. So most people feel, not everyone. So if you're one of the ones that's not sure, you just got to pick. It's the best guess scenario. So those of you who felt one side is easier, if it was tilting your hands to the left, you're going to bend your right leg and stand your right foot. If it was tilting your triangle to the right, you're going to bend your left leg and stand your left foot. Okay? Whichever direction it's easier for you to tilt your arms in, you're going to stand the opposite leg, the foot of the opposite leg. You're not crossing your legs, no. So that means it's easier for you to take your triangle to the right. Is that right, Martine? Yeah. Yep. Okay, so now bring your arms up in the triangle and begin to explore what could be a relationship between standing on this foot, having this foot standing, and tilting your triangle in the opposite direction. So if your right foot's standing, you're only tilting to the left. If your left foot is standing, you are only tilting to the right. Sorry if I wasn't clear. How can you use your foot? So now just take your arms, well, you can take them up or you can take them to the floor. In the previous variation, we were taking your hands to the floor, and maybe I didn't specify. So you can play with where the floor is for you. Is it out to the side at shoulder height, or is it upwards in the direction of above your head? Now you're going to keep going to the same side, but can you lengthen your leg? So you're only going, Margaret, you're going to the left, not the right, with your right leg? Yeah, but I just saw you go the other way. That's all right. I just checking that you knew which side you were going to. If you know what you're doing, you can just totally ignore me. You can say I'm an idiot. Yes. So now lengthen your legs. And continue. So lengthen your leg. And continue going in the same direction. And just see, is it any easier? Has what we call the auxiliary movement given you somehow some understanding of the pattern that's required, or the sensations that your nervous system can tag or flag? Looks like for most of you that's the case. Huh? Okay, now try the same thing to the other side. To begin with, they're to the ceiling and your arms are in a triangle. So it's a flat base, perpendicular to the floor, perpendicular to the floor, perpendicular. That's good. That's good. Directly upwards. Yeah. So yours.
Okay.
And then you turn them. Taking to the floor. It was an open. So you can take them upwards. Try that. See if that's easier. You can take them directly to the right. It can be done both ways or anywhere in between. And you might notice sometimes in FIs, when we're giving them that we'll direct, when we're lengthening through the arm, we'll direct the lengthening of the arm in different directions, perhaps in order to connect the movement of the arm to help differentiate through the ribs and the spine. So here you have the chance to give yourself an FI, rolling your pelvis. So some people have got the leg bent, and some foot standing, and others have got the legs straight. So whichever you are, do the opposite if you haven't already. If your legs are long, bend the opposite leg that you're tilting towards, and use your foot. And if you've already done that, lengthen your legs and see what that's like now. And then can you do it either way? Leg long, leg bent, legs crossed, bent and crossed. And make it any easier? Bend your leg. Everybody bend their legs now. Cross one leg over the other. Bring your palms to the ceiling in a triangle. And now tilt your hands and knees in one direction. Same rate, moving them away from one another and come back. Come back onto your back so they come towards one another again. Any easier to be reversible? Can't hear you. Mm-hmm. Pardon? Moshe, I'll do a Moshe. The weakness is in your brain. So. Mm-hmm. 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 Okay. So maybe you want to gather around here for a moment. Is that okay? So let's have a look at the side you can do. Yes, bend the leg. So first of all, perhaps you can see where she's starting. Okay. Can you tell where you're starting? No? Yeah. So think, instead of starting from there, think about starting from your pelvis. And what moves your pelvis?
So that means pelvis.
The
like
back
center.
muscles. The back muscles. So if you tilt your arms this way, let your shoulder lift. So I've been going around and helping a few people with this. So as you start to roll, there are different ways you can roll, and she's rolling through flexion. So there's folding here. So think about arching your lower back as you do it. So tilt your arms, the triangle of your arms. Keep tilting, so you go over that side. This arches, arch. So where are your hands going? Where are your hands going? Take your hands upwards, upwards. So I can see that some of you have noticed that the taking the arms upwards connects with this movement through the back. So if you don't have that sense of direction in your kinesphere, then you tend to stay more planted on your back. Now what do? Come back, come back, come back, come back.
So by putting your hands straight away, I could see that I could move here, which I wasn't actually doing before.
Yes, that's okay. So now let's have a look at the other side. I think it's really useful to see. Okay. So we're actually looking for...
I can't actually...
Yeah, there. So think about your hands more. No, not there. There. Now you push with your foot. Now push with your foot. There. And come back. To start with your arms. Think pelvis. There. Now push with your foot. That's an... Weak? Sorry. See, it's not weak. You can change it almost instantly, but the feeling is, this is what you'll meet in your classes, and when you start working with them, they feel weak.
Yeah, I felt straight away that this is strong and this is really weak.
Yeah.
And I can't lift my pelvis this side of my pelvis.
Yes, and most people do have that perception that it's weakness. But what it is, the brain is busy doing something that doesn't allow your nervous system to follow intention to do something else. So let's have a look at you crossing one leg over the other. Do the easier way first. This one, I think.
Yeah.
Oh no, the other.
Going to the right.
Yeah, this one. This one.
Going to the left.
Going to the right. Yeah. Tilt your arms. So you're going to... So there's a... Come back. Come back. Okay. So I'm going to put my hands on her pelvis. All right. Now, so tilt your hands on your knees at the same rate, thinking of your pelvis rolling. Pelvis rolling. Keep tilting your arms. Think about your head going backwards, knees going away from you. There we go. And come back. Come back. So what do you... Has anyone done this or read this lesson in the ATM book?
No.
Yeah? What does he call it? Do you remember, Daniel? Coordinating the flexors and the extensors. So the whole lesson is about organizing the middle of the trunk to reversibly shift from one pattern of an action to another through twisting. And it's so foreign to us.
I can't actually imagine that I'm actually using this part. It's not coming in my mind. Whenever you're asking us
Those questions.
straight away going straight through here and activating them and
Mm-hmm.
but not here, nothing here. Just my mind.
So sometimes when we can't turn something off, we can't go there to think to turn it on because it's already on. Okay. So think about coming to, as you roll, as they tilt. Now lengthening, taking your hands away from your knees. Only go so far as you can come back. Come back. Think about rounding your back towards that set floor. And again. Forgotten. Yes. So it's a work in process. Forgotten. Yeah. Think about your pelvis, nod your feet. And come back. Is that easier than before?
Yes.
Any questions? Just get the microphone. Thanks, Jenny.
I'm sorry if these are very simple questions.
Don't be sorry for simple
is
questions.
The clarification of lifting the shoulder is lifting the shoulder away from the mat, isn't it? It's not lifting the shoulder towards the ear. When you...
Absolutely.
Okay, so that's away from the mat.
So can I show you that one on you first? Yeah. So lie on your back. So the triangle is described as the hands together, keeping the elbows straight, and the base of the triangle is across the top of the chest. So once you have an image of your triangle, okay, can you tilt your hands? Yeah, and come back. So there's quite a bit of differentiation that can happen. The shoulder blade can slide around the ribs, which starts to take the weight more onto the upper ribs on the other side. And if the head goes with it, it's not going to contradict that motion, and you start to go there. And then you come back. So if you have an idea of a steel triangle that doesn't have any possibility of motion within it, then you can, feel quite stuck. But if you can actually move your triangle quite a lot by sliding the scapula around the ribs, which brings the clavicle forwards, which turns the sternum, which rolls the ribs. That's okay. I'm sure others didn't either. We're just explicating a little. So it's a good question. Thank you.
And the second
we've got a question about the question. Is it about the question?
It's about the turning, yes.
Well, let's hear her other question first.
Yeah, I was just wondering, when you say it's coordinating the flexor and extensor, it means when we roll towards the side is extension, isn't it? And that is shortening of the back and lengthening of the front. And when we come back, is the using the the flexors to try to return. That's what it meant, isn't it? Okay, yeah. I get terribly confused. Sorry.
You didn't. You don't sound confused at all.
No. It's the arching of the back that I consider as flexing. I don't know why I have that funny impression. Arching of the back, which is really shortening of the back muscles.
Yes.
For me, means flexing the back muscle. So I think I get a little bit confused with that. It's flexing and extension of different muscles, not the same.
Yes. So here, let me just clarify a bit further, perhaps. The flexors, there's different ways of classifying the musculature of the body. So, as Julie talked about this, that you remember? Flexors close the body. They close our joints. So if I go into full flexion of everything, I'm going to do this, be a little ball. Our extensors develop in a relationship to gravity, and they erect us in space, and they open our articulations. So if you think of the spine, folding, it's flexion. So flexion describes the action of the muscular activity in a particular way, and the extensors extend us. Does that help? Who read? Yeah.
Thank you.
They open the articulates, the extensors open the articulations. So it's a general thing, Martina, I'm talking, not specific.
I was saying because Margaret was saying, so I was answering Margaret's question.
Yeah, I didn't hear where the voice came from.
She said it's for the spine, and I said, no, that's the extensors.
Thank you.
Can I repeat my question?
Oh, yes, sorry.
Well, actually, it wasn't much. It was a thought I've been playing with while we were on the back, because just looking at the way you a little bit struggled with the bending and the flexing and extending. I found when I have got my knee across, it makes a big difference where I got my foot, the way I can arch
Yes.
or extend,
Yes.
and how easy I can turn. It makes a difference when it's more in line with my buttock. I find it much easier to work my pelvis.
So for each person, that could be a little
just
bit different.
talking about
Usually the foot in the midline. But we don't go, this is the easiest, this is the best.
No, I'm just
because
saying for me.
I know, but what I'm talking about, what I'm saying is a general comment about, we've talked about the placement of the foot. So where, hopefully, you hear that, unless it's your scotoma, you know, and then you don't hear it, you know, and then it'll be said 1,000 times.
It was such a difference for me to try out the different positions. I just noticed such a difference.
Great.
How easy or hard it was.
Great.
Mine was just more clarification on flexors extensors,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe it's a silly question too, but whatever.
No
so
silly
full
questions.
Back arch, is that then? Does that mean you start to use reflexors and extensors, or is it still just full extension? Like, are you just
The action
Like
is
a
usually
hold back.
described as extension,
okay?
and you are using the extensor's muscles.
So it's not like it past a certain point you start using the opposite. It's
You
all
can.
the-
There are other places in the body that you can.
Okay.
We'll look at that next week somewhere else. But so if I'm not going to. Pardon? Can be. Different people classify it different ways. But if you were to do a full arch and then lift your head forwards, you've started using your flexors.
But just in a small zone, or
Yeah,
or-
probably.
Okay.
Who knows? Anything's possible. We can distort ourselves and do unnecessary work in any number of ways. And I was just totally shocked, it was post-training, when I learned that I was capable of holding I was trying to do an act of an extension, and I was holding some parts. I was actively flexing some parts while I was trying to extend others. I see that all the time in my practice with my clients. They'll have one area of their spine where they're really caught, pulled back, held, fixed, and other parts they're overextended in the other direction. And they can do endless, variations of that. Mm-hmm.
When we were doing it yesterday, I was trying to work out what was going on, and it occurred to me that when you watch a cat or a dog lying on their back, that's exactly what they do. They arch their back, and they've got obviously shorter arms and legs, so they don't have as much pendulum activity going on.
The kinesphere, they don't have so much access to that kinesphere around
But it was a
them.
really helpful image to go, oh, that's what's going on. It's this arching and rotating, arching and lengthening or shortening on the sides that flips you.
Well, it's not any spine can do this. This.
Sorry, I know it probably is another dumb question, but so if we're extending, that means that it's shortening the neck muscles and
At the back?
at the back, and it's lengthening in the front.
Theoretically.
So for that exercise, because I wasn't quite sure where my head should be at the
Yes.
end of it.
Look, we...
On the end of your neck.
yeah, attached.
Hopefully attached to the end of my neck. But
So, in an ideal world, our nervous system has the most amazing functions to coordinate our actions. And you've talked with Julie about agonist and antagonist.
Yes.
Now, the flexors of the body are the antagonists to the extensors. So if the extensors of the spine are working, the flexors hopefully lengthen. Guess what? We can override that. So there is no guarantee, but as you get more and more observant looking movement, you'll see it. You'll see that that's happening. So I could plan to be using my extensors that keep my head like this. I can co-contract, so I just rigidify a section and everything's contracting. You know, the flexors, the extensors, the... Pardon? No, you want balance and the ability to switch from one to the other. Yes. So Yona just said, I'll just share the conversation. Yona just says, that's what's happening in my neck, because she's struggling a little bit with pain in the neck. And Marissa said, well, you need to do that when you stand on your head. Well, actually, you don't need to do that when you stand on your head. So it's just, you want to be able to have such a fine-tuned shifting between whichever direction you change your balance in, that's what you want to come forward. A readiness, but not an ever-readiness.
I'm not in pain when I do extensor. I don't think that's very painful.
No, mate, no.
Can I ask something? So I felt weakness. So I just want to I'm a bit confused now. Like, so what was it? Like, I felt weak here, which you said it was in my mind. So
I'll just share with you. I think I had the weakest brain out of 140 people in my training. So, yeah. So, what's your question?
So I actually really felt that my pelvis was not at all ready to come on to the left, which it was actually the other, like left hip, just automatically comes up.
Mm-hmm.
So that was not weakness, that was my muscles. I was not emphasizing these muscles.
You've got a habit and a self-image of your self in action that didn't include that pattern, that possibility for going in that direction. You had it on the other side very quickly.
Yeah. So it was not the weakness. No, okay.
Does it feel weak now? It might feel unfamiliar.
Yes, I felt unfamiliar.
And it might feel strange, and it might not feel easy.
Yes, and
So we could still interpret weak.
But I could imagine that it's like when we do movements, we imagine and then we follow it. And so with this, when you were doing, when actually I had that hands-on, it wasn't coming in my image, like not automatically. No.
Yeah.
So it's not weakness. It's just that's the blind spot, I can say.
Could be one of your blind spots.
To me, it just sounds like you have awareness of that side, and the other side you have less awareness. So, strength is awareness, and weakness is less awareness. Is it?
Can be, but that's a bit too in a jar, and it's not quite that like that.
It's contradictory because I am really aware with my left side.
So this is where we have a perception of ourselves, and you're going to find that it's going to get really murky and really confusing. But I knew I stood on my right foot more easily. But everyone's telling you it's the left side, But we don't feel it until we sense it. And often many things need to be untangled to sense it. And awareness is strength of it's a strength to be able to be aware. But I wouldn't put awareness equals muscular strength.
No.
And I just want to clarify that's...
No, I wasn't in that context. It was like when I put my mind to, when you were saying about moving your pelvis, and I was similar to you. I think I can't, how do I mean? But when I really thought about it,
you can call out.
And tried to focus
or I
on
could be
the
aware,
hip,
I know.
Then I found that I could bring it up, kind of, I don't know, so it wasn't about, anyway.
So that was about, so for you, your increasing awareness enabled you to do something.
Yeah.
Is that about paying attention?
Yes? But if you've...
Attention and awareness, the same.
Yeah. Okay. Did you want to say something? No? Shilan? It's great. That was you?
Yeah, I was just going to ask something. I'm just trying to understand in terms of what I've learned. Sometimes we look at muscles in terms of there's a reactive muscles and bully muscles.
Which?
Bully muscles, that's what they refer to. It's like one muscle that is sort of overriding or impacting on the other muscles around it. And so we might look at one area saying, okay, we can't flex or extend that particular muscle, but there's another bigger muscle or more dominant, well, maybe not bigger, but more dominant muscle that's impacting on that. Is that what you sort of...
No, I'd say that's trying to put another lens,
Yeah.
fit what we're saying with another lens.
Okay.
There will be similarities, and if you really thoroughly understand the Feldenkrais method, you could kind of see that, yeah, that's something like it, but it's not really accurate in the terms we're looking for.
Okay. Thanks.
Let's not go there right now. Did you want to say something?
Just from a kinesiology. It's from a
I knew you were doing
kinesiology
it
point
from
of
a
view.
and I didn't want to go. It's not that right now doesn't apply,
Yeah.
and to tease it out would take
Okay.
too long. So, if you can see similarities. Yeah. So just keep the similarities, but don't try and put the language on yet that you already know. Would be my recommendation.
Mine was on the thought before and before. It was this, like, just as you said, just have attention. And I was just like, yeah, but that's all I'm doing is having attention. But that doesn't just automatically, like,
Change
switch
things.
it over. It feels like it's going to be a long time of, like, I'm going to be hyper aware by the end of it. But I have to, like, learn all the different bits and pieces or something. Like,
And sometimes the way we pay attention is part of our habit. Yeah.
That
guys. Which is why sometimes, to stir up the pot and do ATM in a different way, and you're trying by going smaller and constraining your neck. And for other people, it's like, don't be so serious. Laugh, play, make mistakes. Some people never want a mistake. About time you started making mistakes. Some people... So it's really exploring your habits of thinking, moving, feeling, and acting.
I know it sounds like a contradiction, but I think in Feldenkrais...
Yeah, we're getting there.
In Feldenkrais, you can be aware of not being aware. I know it sounds like a contradiction, but somehow I feel
Yes.
like...
Yes.
You can be aware of not
I
being
understand that.
aware. Okay. Said that to people and they say, that's not possible. But
Yeah.
I feel it can.
You may not be aware of what you're not aware of.
Yeah. Like, I know this bit isn't aware, but I know that it is not aware. I am not asleep to the fact that it is not awake. So I'm aware that this bit is switching on, that bit's switching off, and yes, I just rolled over and I could do it, and the next time I go to do it, it's dropped out. So I can add another percentage to my 99.
Off-trackness?
Off-trackness with awareness that it's okay, because if I haven't got it yet, then it's still arriving.
Yep. Okay, let's go back to the floor. Oh, no. Yeah? Come on. So lie on your back. Lie on your back, please. And be still. Bend your knees. Cross whichever leg you like over the other leg. Bring your palms of your hands together. And begin to tilt a little left, a little right. The triangle of your arms, the configuration of your legs. And see, what do you, has that observation, that conversation, can you bring any of that information back for yourself? Sense, feel. Maybe for you, the movement of flexors and extensors helps a little bit. Maybe you gain inspiration from seeing someone move. From seeing Madhavi find a little more extension and twisting and turning. So it's not about getting your hands overhead, but feeling how all these variations combine to form an action. Where you're continually self-organizing yourself, self-organizing in space, on the floor, including all of yourself in the action. Thinking of your pelvis. Pelvis constantly rolling and tilting to the side and then rolling, tilting backwards, rolling back onto the back, and then keeping on rolling to the other side. They've done more lessons than you, Fiona. Yeah, you do, exactly. And you learn something from that. Absolutely. Okay, please leave it. Lengthen your legs. And bring your arms, palms together. Legs comfortably apart. If you put your legs too far apart, then they act as weights on either side of your pelvis, and they can actually inhibit your pelvis from rolling. If you put them too close together, then it can influence your pelvis in another way. So begin to roll, to move your hands left and right. See, how can you use the changing configuration of your arms, the rolling of your pelvis, the arching of your back, the lengthening of your front, to roll yourself from side to side like this. Feel how your legs follow the movement of your pelvis. You feel that maybe they soften and bend a little bit. There's going to be that temptation to push the ground with your heels. See if you can resist that temptation. Can you make it faster? So now you can... Great. Leave it lie on your back. Bring your arms down, legs long. Notice how you're sensing the floor now, yourself, your contact with the floor. Could you please put your arms on the floor above your head? Again, spread your legs comfortably apart and begin to roll your pelvis. Roll your pelvis a little right, a little left. So you can gradually make it a little faster and faster. Feel how when you roll to one side, it influences the arm on the opposite side. Can you feel it tending to roll, your arm rolling as your ribs lift up away from the floor? Could you make it faster and faster or larger till eventually you can roll onto your side like this, and then back over your back, and then back to the other side? Okay. So your legs are long. We're going through extension. You're using your back, the power of your back muscles, which is often difficult for many of us to find. Okay, so pay attention to your neighbours. And could you roll to the right? And as you start to roll, listen to the people above you, the people below you, and roll twice. 2 rolls to the right. And then roll back 2 rolls to the left. Just check. You can roll on top of your neighbours. It's fine. It's a way to get familiar.
That's 2.
And 2 back in the other direction. Can you feel how your pelvis is rolling through the arching of your back? Yes, but you should be a little bit careful. We're not in reversibility now. We've changed qualities. I'll be really funny. What, Jenny? Hurtling. We're rocketing across the floor.
Right or left?
Somebody pick it.
Right.
Right. Rocketing right. Keep going right. You can keep going, you keep going. If you find an obstacle, go over it. If it's someone... keep going. You just keep going, you keep going, you keep going. Now, isn't it no wonder that kids have fun? They get to do this. Thank you, Simon. And then roll back. Yes, stop. And come back. Your pelvis is rolling and rolling and rolling and rolling. Okay, rest on your back. Notice how you distribute your self on the floor now. How you sense your right leg, your left leg, the length of your spine, your arms. And then when you're ready, slowly roll yourself to one side. Bring yourself via sitting to standing. And we'll take a 10-minute break.